in the heart of the dense pine crest forest, where sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy. I set out on a solo camping expedition, seeking solace from the cacophony of daily life. The allure of isolation and the promise of nature's embrace drew me to a secluded spot known only to the most intrepid of campers. The journey to my chosen haven was an odyssey in itself, a winding trail through ancient trees that whispered untold stories. The air grew cooler as I ventured deeper, and the rustle of leaves beneath my boots was the only sound accompanying my thoughts. By the time I reached the clearing, the sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows that danced on the forest floor. The solitude was palpable, and the silence, though serene, held a hint of unease. I dismissed it as the natural apprehension that comes with isolation and set up camp beneath the watchful eyes of the towering pines. As night enveloped the forest, the symphony of nocturnal creatures began. The crackling of the campfire was a feeble counterpoint to the chorus of unseen beings, yet a disquieting sense of being watched lingered, like an invisible audience observing my solitary sojourn. In the flickering firelight, I noticed an oddity. An ancient tree with a gnarled trunk, its bark resembling twisted faces. The locals had whispered about the Watcher's Tree, said to be a silent sentinel harboring the spirits of the forest. Superstitions, I thought, dismissing the notion as the byproduct of local folklore. Sleep came reluctantly that night, as if the forest itself resisted the intrusion of an outsider. The wind carried murmurs that seemed like hushed conversations, and shadows played tricks on the periphery of my vision. I chalked it up to an overactive imagination fueled by the isolation. In the pre-dawn stillness, I awoke to a peculiar sound, a rhythmic tapping, like distant footsteps drawing nearer. The forest had an otherworldly quality at that hour, the darkness reluctant to yield to the tentative light. The tapping persisted, growing louder, resonating through the trees. Against my better judgment, I followed the eerie cadence into the heart of the forest. The Watcher's Tree loomed in the dim light, its contorted features appearing more pronounced. The tapping now seemed to emanate from the very bark of the ancient sentinel. As I approached, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The tapping transformed into an ethereal melody, a haunting tune that sent shivers down my spine. Mesmerized, I touched the gnarled surface of the tree, and the melody intensified, resonating through my very core. In that surreal moment, the faces on the bark seemed to come alive, their eyes conveying ancient wisdom. It was as if the spirits of the forest had chosen to reveal themselves to an outsider. A surge of adrenaline mingled with awe as I witnessed a phenomenon beyond rational explanation. The faces on the Watcher's Tree conveyed a message, an ancient pact between the forest and those who dared to venture into its heart. A communion with nature that transcended the boundaries of the tangible world. The tapping resumed, softer now, a benevolent farewell echoing through the forest. Returning to my camp, the morning sun bathing the clearing in golden light, I felt a newfound connection to the wilderness. The isolation once tinged with unease had transformed into an inexplicable bond with the ancient spirits of Pinecrest Forest. Days passed in serene solitude, my encounters with the mystical aspects of the forest becoming a cherished secret. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon on the third night, an unsettling change gripped the atmosphere. The shadows, once benign, now seemed to writhe with an unseen tension. A primal instinct alerted me to an intruder in the solitude, the distant echo of footsteps not my own. The rhythmic tapping, now an ominous drumbeat, echoed through the forest. The Watcher's Tree, once a conduit for benevolent spirits, radiated an unsettling energy. Fear, like a tangible entity, clung to the air. The nocturnal symphony of the forest had transformed into a discordant cacophony. I extinguished the campfire, plunging myself into darkness to discern the source of the disquiet. The tapping intensified, drawing closer, and an inexplicable dread settled over the clearing. The Watcher's Tree, now a silhouette against the moonlit sky, seemed to contort in agony. The faces etched on its bark contorted, their eyes now conveying a plea for sanctuary. A chilling realization gripped me. The spirits of the forest were not alone. An entity, unknown and malevolent, sought to breach the ancient pact. Panic seized my senses as the tapping coalesced into guttural whispers, a language as ancient as the roots of the forest. A sudden gust extinguished the feeble light of my lantern. In the oppressive darkness, I felt a presence, unnatural and ominous. Shadows danced with a life of their own, and the forest, once a sanctuary, became a realm of unseen menace. Torn between fleeing and confronting the unseen intruder, I stumbled backward, my every instinct screaming of impending danger. The rhythmic tapping ceased abruptly, replaced by an unsettling stillness. The Watcher's Tree, a spectral sentinel, stood silent, its ancient pact tested by an encroaching malevolence. A primal scream echoed through the forest, tearing through the night. It was a sound not of this world, an anguished wail that resonated with the agony of the ancient spirits. The faces on the Watcher's Tree contorted in silent horror, their eyes mirroring the terror that now gripped my soul. In the deafening silence that followed, I fled, my footsteps reverberating through the haunted clearing. The forest, once a realm of mystic communion, had become a nightmarish labyrinth, and the unseen entity, an antagonist in the ancient pact. As dawn broke, revealing the tangled web of the Pinecrest forest, I emerged, breathless and haunted. The Watcher's Tree, its faces etched in perpetual agony, seemed to whisper a mournful farewell. The spirits, betrayed by an intruder unknown, had withdrawn into the depths, leaving me with an indelible tale of isolation turned horror, a testament to the thin veil between the seen and the unseen in the heart of ancient woods. The decision to embark on a solo camping trip into the heart of the sprawling Blackwood forest was fueled by an innate desire for solitude, a temporary escape from the incessant demands of modern life. Little did I know that the serene isolation I sought would unravel into a nightmarish ordeal beneath the brooding canopy of ancient trees. The journey into Blackwood was a descent into a realm untouched by time. Towering trees, their limbs entwined like ancient sentinels, cast a perpetual twilight beneath the dense foliage. As dusk settled, the forest transformed into an ethereal realm, the fading sunlight weaving through the leaves in dappled patterns. The chosen campsite lay in a small clearing, a haven amidst the looming trees. The serenity was almost tangible as I set up my modest camp, a solitary tent beneath a sea of stars. The crackling of the campfire provided a reassuring symphony against the backdrop of nocturnal whispers. As the fire's glow waned, a subtle unease settled over the clearing. An inexplicable feeling of being watched took root, and the nocturnal sounds that had initially been a lullaby of nature now became an eerie symphony. But I dismissed these sensations as the natural apprehension that accompanies solitude. As the last embers flickered out, I retreated into the tent, cocooned in the warmth of my sleeping bag. The forest, now cloaked in impenetrable darkness, seemed to come alive with an unseen energy. It was then that I first heard it, a distant whisper, a murmur on the fringes of perception. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I unzipped the tent and stepped into the cool night. The whisper persisted, an indistinct murmuring that seemed to emanate from the very shadows that clung to the ancient trees. It was a symphony of voices, too soft to decipher but laden with an otherworldly weight. Guided by an irresistible force, I ventured deeper into the forest. The canopy above seemed to tighten, the gaps between leaves closing like a shroud. The whispering grew more pronounced, a spectral chorus that enveloped me. It was as if the very fabric of the forest was alive, pulsating with an energy beyond comprehension. The path ahead blurred, and the trees, once familiar, now stood as ominous sentinels. A surreal luminosity bathed the surroundings, a spectral glow that emanated from the heart of the forest. The source of the whispers became evident, a clearing bathed in an ethereal light, its center occupied by a towering monolith adorned with symbols that seemed to dance in the eerie glow. An ancestral instinct urged me forward, a compulsion to decipher the cryptic symbols etched into the monolith. As I touched its cold surface, a surge of images flooded my mind, ancient rituals, forgotten rites, and a pact with a force beyond human comprehension. The very essence of the forest seemed bound to a spectral covenant. The whispers crescendoed, the voices now harmonizing into a haunting melody. Shadows detached from the trees, coalescing into spectral figures that moved in rhythmic patterns. It was a spectral congregation, a dance of entities bound by the ancient pact. Fear gripped me, but an unseen force tethered me to the unfolding ritual. As the spectral dance reached its zenith, a voice, older than time itself, echoed through the clearing. It spoke of forgotten realms, of the interplay between the seen and the unseen, and the fragility of the veil that separated worlds. The forest, it seemed, was a guardian of secrets, a repository of forgotten lore. A sudden gust extinguished the ethereal glow, plunging the clearing into impenetrable darkness. Panic seized me as the spectral figures dissolved into shadows that slithered through the undergrowth. The whispers turned into guttural growls, a language both ancient and alien. Retreating, I stumbled through the blackness, the forest seemingly in a state of agitation. The once familiar path now twisted and turned, a labyrinth intent on confounding my escape. The whispers pursued, a relentless echo that reverberated through the trees. In the inky darkness, the forest became an abyss. Shadows materialized, elongated and sinister. The very air crackled with an unspoken malevolence. It was then that I glimpsed them, eyes, phosphorescent and otherworldly, watching from the depths of the forest. The pursuit intensified, the spectral entities drawing closer with every frantic step. Fear, a tangible entity, gripped me as I stumbled upon the clearing with my campsite. The tent, once a haven, now stood as a feeble barrier against the encroaching shadows. With a desperate resolve, I dove into the tent and zipped it shut, the fabric offering scant protection against the unseen forces that assailed it. The whispers, now a cacophony, surrounded the tent, a chorus of spectral voices that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality. Hours passed, an eternity in the confines of that flimsy shelter. The whispers eventually waned, and the spectral glow that had enveloped the forest dissipated. With the first light of dawn, the shadows retreated, leaving behind a forest that seemed to exhale in relief. As I emerged from the tent, the clearing bore no traces of the spectral dance. The ancient monolith, the source of the surreal ritual, had vanished. The Blackwood Forest, once an ethereal realm, now stood silent and enigmatic. The journey back through the now familiar path was an ascent from the abyss. The forest, seemingly indifferent, retained its secrets. The whispers lingered, carried by the wind through the towering trees. The spectral dance, a momentary breach of the veil, became a haunting memory, an indelible mark on the canvas of my solitary exploration. The Blackwood Forest, with its ancient covenant and spectral whispers, remained an enigma. The isolation that had initially drawn me had transformed into a nightmarish communion with forces that defied comprehension. As I emerged from the depths of the forest, the boundary between the seen and the unseen blurred, a testament to the enduring mysteries that lie within the heart of the wilderness. The allure of isolation led me to the Forgotten Isle, a desolate landmass engulfed by mist and overshadowed by whispers of bygone curses. The locals spoke of a night when the shadows gained life, weaving tales of a spectral dance that unfolded in the moonlit hours. Intrigued, I set up camp on the desolate shores, oblivious to the eerie ordeal awaiting me. The journey to the Forgotten Isle was a solitary sail through dense fog that clung to the water's surface like spectral fingers. The island materialized from the mist, a silhouette of jagged cliffs and twisted trees. A shiver ran down my spine as the boat grated against the pebbled shore, the sound echoing through the desolation. The desolate landscape seemed to exhale a chilling breath as I set up camp on the shores. A lone tent faced the vast expanse of the sea, and a feeble campfire struggled against the island's oppressive gloom. Night fell swiftly, and the sea breeze carried whispers that seemed to emanate from the very rocks. As the moon ascended, the atmosphere on the Forgotten Isle thickened. The air became charged with an unseen energy, and the shadows beneath the twisted trees seemed to writhe with life. Skepticism wrestled with a growing sense of unease, but I dismissed it as the byproduct of isolation. It was as the first shadows stretched across the ground that the atmosphere shifted. The air became dense, and an eerie stillness enveloped the island. The campfire's flickering light cast long shadows that danced with unnatural grace. The tales of the spectral dance resonated with newfound credibility. In the heart of the night, an ethereal glow bathed the island. The moon, veiled by wisps of mist, cast an otherworldly pallor. The shadows, once passive, seemed to detach from the trees, converging in a spectral congregation. It was the commencement of the dance, the very phenomenon spoken of in hushed whispers. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I ventured toward the spectral gathering. The shadows moved in rhythmic patterns, a dance that defied the laws of nature. The air hummed with an otherworldly melody, as if the very fabric of reality resonated with the spectral performance. As I observed, transfixed, the shadows took form, a spectral procession that moved in silent elegance. Faces, contorted in anguish, emerged from the shadows, their eyes reflecting an ancient sorrow. It was as if the very essence of the island had materialized, bearing witness to an age-old tragedy. In the center of the spectral dance, a figure materialized, a silhouette draped in tattered robes. The island's forgotten curse had taken form, a spectral entity that swayed with the haunting rhythm. Its eyes met mine, and a chill surged through my veins as I became an inadvertent spectator in the spectral drama. The entity spoke, a voice that echoed from ages past. It narrated a tale of betrayal and heartache, of a love lost to the relentless march of time. The shadows, once mere conduits of the island's melancholy, now embodied the remnants of a forgotten existence. The spectral dance, a communion between the living and the shadows, unfolded with a surreal beauty. The figures moved in silent lament, their movements conveying a narrative etched in the fabric of the forgotten isle. I, an unwitting witness, felt a strange connection to the spectral entities, a shared sorrow that transcended the boundaries of the tangible world. As the night deepened, the dance reached its zenith. The figures, their silent mourning reaching a crescendo, dissipated into the very shadows from whence they emerged. The island, bathed in the moon's fading glow, returned to a state of desolation. The spectral dance, a transient breach of the island's forgotten curse, had concluded. Dawn broke, revealing the forgotten isle in the cold light of morning. The shadows, once animate, now clung to the trees as if reluctant to retreat. The sea, a serene expanse, whispered the secrets of the night. The campfire, reduced to embers, mirrored the fading glow of the spectral dance. As I sailed away from the forgotten isle, the echo of the spectral dance lingered, a haunting memory etched into the corners of my consciousness. The tales of the locals, once dismissed as folklore, now held a weight of undeniable truth. The forgotten isle, with its spectral dance and ancient curses, stood as a testament to the enigmatic communion between the living and the shadows, an island veiled in mist and eclipsed by the haunting echoes of its own forgotten past.